I really didn't want them to come to my house to try and convince me to go back, because I knew at that time I was very vulnerable, that I probably would have, but I knew I didn't want to go back, because everything
Right.
that I was told about love, about forgiveness, about us being a family, like it was all a lie. And
Yeah.
that's why I went, because the love that I thought I was feeling there, that I thought was genuine, like really wasn't. Like obviously with some of the people, yeah, 100%. I still love a lot of the members there, but it's just like so crazy that you can love someone while you're there, but the second they leave, it's like that's it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Find the Alternative. I'm your host, Adam, 10-year former member of the WMSCOG in Salt Lake City. Today, I have two special guests, Diana, who is not a stranger to this channel anymore. Might as well just take over my channel at this point. She's going to co-host with me, and we are going to talk to Kassandra. And Kassandra, we're going to do her part two, so I'm trying to switch this up a little bit so that way people don't just have to hear my voice. So, if you haven't seen Diana's part one or part two, which will be out at this point, I highly recommend go watch those. We go into a lot of really interesting things, and she gives her testimony of why she left. Really, really interesting. Has a lot of really good points, a lot of really good feedback from those as well. And then obviously watch Kassandra's part one. At moment of recording, Kassandra's is almost passing 500 views and it was only posted 2 days ago, so that one's skyrocketing. Diana's part one is over 1,000 views and is only 2 weeks ago, so really excited about that. If you haven't met Diana or Kassandra, I'm going to turn the time over to them so they can introduce themselves really quick. Diana, take the floor.
Hello, everyone, again. Again, my name is Diana, a former member from 2012 to about 2023, so a little over 10 years. I was in different Zions, different states, different cities. Did a lot of traveling because of the church, but all for the wrong purposes. But finally out, thankfully, finally out, able to realize what is truth and what is false. And now just being happy, actually living life.
There you go.
Kassandra, introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Kassandra. I'm also a former member. I was there from 2015 until 2021 on and off. And then finally found my way out.
Perfect. That's how we do it. We just find that way. And Diana, if you ever want to chip in as I'm going through these questions too, just feel free to chip in. If you have anything you want to add, just go for it. Kassandra, one of the things I want to talk to you about on this one, because we kind of went over a few different things, you coming in and you coming out in a way, in the part one. I want to go through kind of your emotions of that process, because like when you stopped keeping service and you kind of left the church, walk us through that. What was going through your mind? Were you scared about not keeping the Sabbath? Were you scared about not keeping the feast? Kind of walk us through what's going through your mind as you stepped away from the church.
Yeah, definitely was. I remember the first time I didn't go. It was, sorry if you can hear the girls in the background. So the first time I didn't keep the Sabbath, I remember I asked myself, like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't the way, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I should be in church. I need to be in church. If I miss one, like, like I'm done,
Right.
I'm losing blessings. My kids are losing blessings. That was always my biggest concern with my girls, like them not being able to make it to heaven, because of me, because I wasn't strong enough to continue, because I wasn't, I didn't know how to forgive. and it was going to be my fault, you know. And I think that's mainly why I was so on and off that last year, you know, where I I was going and then I'd stop and then I'd try again and then I'd stop and then it was like a service here and there and then it was just like okay, like I don't feel what I once felt when I first came here, you know.
Right.
So the only reason I guess again was because of my girls because I remember when I first started. And it's funny because one of the sisters there always reminded me that I asked her if I can't make it to a feast or if I can't make it to a Sabbath day for whatever reason, can you come grab my girls and take them? You know?
Right.
Yeah. And I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're not in the cult anymore. We love kids now.
You're right. Can you guys go to your
It's not General Pastor's sermon, so it's okay for her to speak. So
yeah, but I remember I had asked her that, and she always brought it up that, you know, like I love my kids so much that
right.
I would rather they made it and I didn't. And I always said that, you know, like the reason I'm getting these blessings, the reason that I'm sacrificing is for them.
Right.
Because in the end, if at least they can make it, I'll be okay with that, you know? And that was always
Right.
my heart and there. And I think that's why, you know, that's that advantage point they had on me to continue
The
trying.
pressure point.
Yeah. Like, what about the girls? You know, you need to think about your girls' blessings because if you don't come, then they don't get blessings. They get blessings through you. So you need to go preaching. You need to pass off your sermons. It's not just for you, it's for them. And yeah, I think that was the fear they instilled in me personally.
You know,
Right.
I will mention you're not the only one. We did that too. When we went to visit members who were no longer coming to Zion, that was the first thing that we said to them. It's like, it's maybe you don't want to go to Zion, but think of your kids. So it was like the first, I guess, like attack. Think of your kids, you don't want them to be saved? I don't know how many times I said that to sisters that we would go visit. And of course, it gets to you as a mom. I want to save my children. So fine, let's go back to Zion.
Mhm.
Yeah. How can you say no? Right.
Yeah.
Like, how can you say no to that?
Yeah.
Um. So, question for you, Cassandra.
Mhm.
Did your kids ever, ask when you left, like, hey, do we still, are we going to heaven? Or why are we not going to church? Or what about father and mother? Or what about I mean, I guess your kids might not have been old enough to really understand. But I know for older kids that their parents have left the church and they left the church, that's a really hard thing for them to be asked, right? Because they just come out of a cult. I'm just going to say what it is. Disclaimer here, our opinion, right? This is all our opinion. Keep forgetting to do that in the beginning. But a lot of times when the older kids come out and they're like, Mommy, Daddy, like, are we going to heaven? Does this mean we're going to hell? Do we have to keep the Sabbath? Like all these things. Did that happen to you?
Thankfully, no. But you know, my girls had a really good relationship with a lot of the sisters. And um I mean, they grew up there, you know. So they would I mean, my oldest would always say, like, when are we going to Zion, Mom? Like, why haven't we gone to Zion? Can we go to Zion? I want to see the brothers and sisters. Like, can we go to
Oh,
Zion? You know?
yeah,
And um for them that was home too, you know, like that was their family because they saw them more than they saw their actual family basically, you know.
yeah,
So it was a hard transition for them. Well, for my oldest, I feel my youngest was she was little, she was between 3 and 4, I believe,
right,
when I started like pulling away. Um, so I mean, for her, they're very different. The little one just kind of, she's like, all right, let's just do it, like,
She just
oh,
rolls with the punches.
yeah. My oldest is a little bit more of a, um, she understands more, she grasps
Yeah.
a lot more, and she remembers a lot of things, unfortunately
Yeah.
for me. But she, they didn't necessarily, like think like, oh, we're not going to go to heaven anymore, like because of this. I
That's
think
good.
for them it was hard. It was more so like, why can't we see them?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I see my my brothers and sisters that I like grew up with, and um but again, like, they were close to a lot of the sisters because I was close to them. So when they would come and visit me, um they would tell the girls, like, tell your mom to bring you guys to Zion, you know? So it was like, and then obviously when the girls ask, I'm like, okay, like, yeah, we'll go. And I feel like that was always how I ended up going back after I was trying to leave, is because they would come and visit, and they would convince my kids that we needed to go back, like, and they would always say, like, oh, it's because everyone there misses you, Thankfully, they never said, like, oh, if you don't go, you're not going to go to heaven. I'm really thankful for at least that part, that they weren't that evil to try and instill that kind of fear in them.
Right.
Although I know I was told, like, oh, like the end is coming, like it's coming very soon. Like, if you haven't
Father's
kept
footsteps.
Passover, yeah, like if you haven't kept Passover, like it's a dangerous time. Like, you really need to come and keep the feast. Like, God
Yeah.
forgives. You're just like,
Yeah.
does he? I mean, God does forgive, right? But
Yeah.
not the entity that they believe in.
Yeah, not the one that they're worshiping, but when it comes to the doctrine, when you left, did you know it was a cult? Did you fully know that it was false, or were you just kind of in like limbo? Because some members, I feel like, are in limbo, right? They know there's something off. They know there's something incredibly wrong. They can feel it. They can sense it. But at the end of the day, they keep going back because Sabbath, Passover, like these things that are just anchors, um, even though they feel like there's something incredibly wrong.
You know, I didn't start. It's funny because my sister always told me it was a cult, and I was just like, no, it's not. It's a church. Um, but I never really thought about like what a cult was until I actually started to like look into cults. And it wasn't because I like got curious about it, but more so I was watching like documentaries on like, Charles Manson and stuff. And then it was like, wait a minute, like these people like all believed this man and they all followed him like blindly. And it was like, although it wasn't the way that the world the church goes about bringing in members, they do it
Right.
in their terms a more gracious way. um but I was like, wait a minute, like the trauma that the people that came out of it, what they would talk about was like, I have that.
Yeah.
Like that's the same trauma I have. And I just realized like it takes a toll on you. I know, Adam, you've joined another church, but it's really hard for me to even walk into a church. Like, I lost all faith and trust in an organization like that. That I'm really convinced, not completely convinced, but I'm pretty convinced like a lot of churches are cults. So it's like when certain people like trying tell me to go and like join like a sermon or anything like on this on Sunday or something, I'll go. And then like as soon as I'm there, like I feel like I'm having a panic attack. Like that's how
Yeah.
bad it is for me that I'm like, I need to get out of here. Like I need to leave. Like this is too much for me. And yeah, I attended a worship service with my boyfriend once and that was it. And I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
And it was just, you know, like that trauma where like certain things like trigger you and like you can't even listen to the message because you're like in your head like, oh, like they're talking about this, but then you still remember the teachings that you were taught, you know,
Yeah.
unless you completely, you know, study outside of it or start reading the Bible on your own or whatever it is, like you still remember everything that you were taught and then you start contradicting yourself in your head, you know.
Yeah.
And that's been like my hardest thing where if like I can't find myself to go back into a church to really be able to, you know, like be able to hear the word of God and everything. And I try my best to read the Bible on my own, you know, but it's almost hard if you're not kind of sure what you're reading at that point. And then
Yeah.
again, the teachings that they teach you though, they're like in there.
Yep.
It's so hard to get rid of them.
Yeah. And I would encourage, and this is I would say this is like 95% of the case when it comes to members who leave. Diana's, I would say you're probably pretty similar. I would say, um, considering our last discussion that we had. So it's 95% the case when people leave, they don't want to go to a church again. Um, and I would say that's totally fine because if you actually read the scriptures, which obviously I'm still a Christian, obviously this is a Christian channel, but I would say church is like not even secondary, it's like tertiary. Having that personal relationship with God, that is what is important. Because unless you have that personal relationship with God, what is the point of church?
Yeah.
There is no point. Church is literally in Greek, it's ecclesia, the gathering of God's people, right? If you don't have a foundation and you don't have that relationship with Jesus, you don't have that relationship with God, I mean, could it still be beneficial? Sure, but I mean, it's the relationship with you and God, that personal relationship with you and Jesus, you and God. That is what is the most important part, right? Like you can be saved without ever stepping into a church.
Yeah.
Like that's biblical. I mean, of course, do I recommend people finding a healthy, good church when they're ready and they feel like that is the step they want to take and that is the step they feel like they're ready for? Of course. And if you're a WMSCOG member, I can definitely help you if when you're ready to take that step, help you find a good, healthy place, right? But at the end of the day, the Bible doesn't say church saves you. It's Jesus that saves. So reading the scriptures on your own and trying to have that relationship with Jesus, I would say that is the most important thing an ex-member or a WMSCOG current member can do. We kind of talked about it a little bit last time, Dana, but like the restaurant example, just if there's two Mexican food places, right? I really like Mexican food. There's two Mexican food places. One is really, really good. The other one's really, really bad and makes you sick. Doesn't mean Mexican food is meant to kill you or give you diarrhea or something. It's just some people, some restaurants you should avoid.
Yeah.
And some places have no business
Yeah.
making the food or touching the food. But then there's other places that make a really delicious meal and you keep going back for more because you're like, I need more and more and more of it. Church is the same way. Like, um, there's good and there's bad. And just because you leave the WMSCOG, unfortunately, that doesn't mean that you just go to the next church and that one's going to be fine either. So that's why I always recommend study the Bible on your own in your own time. Come to God on your own in your own time. and do that first. That is the primary. Don't listen to anybody else. Don't go to another church and have them try to persuade you or your friends. Just if you feel like it in your heart and you want to, just do it on your own. Because if there is a God and he is the God of the Bible that everyone proclaims, he can definitely have a relationship with you. You don't need a church to have a relationship with God. You don't need to go to a building full of people to have a relationship. That's not, I mean, you can strengthen a existing relationship, sure, but you need to have that personal relationship with God. And so I just recommend, I like talking about this because I want to give ex-members and current WMSCOG members hope, because, I mean, my whole channel is called Finding the Alternative. So naturally, if I don't have the alternative, it makes no sense.
Right. You're
um,
not a liar.
yeah, I'm not a hypocrite. So, but when it comes to, okay, so you're not really like thinking about doctrinal things at this point. You're more so just like you feel something's wrong, you feel something's off, and that is what's separating you from this church. And the sad thing about this church is they operate to where if you don't go to this church, it means you have no relationship with God,
Mhm.
which is the complete opposite of what the Bible says. You have that relationship with God first. It's that personal relationship with God. And then going to church helps you strengthen that relationship because you come together with other congregants, other relievers, and strengthen that. So it's the complete opposite of what they actually teach. So you're not going anymore. Are you overcome with like fear, dread? Do you start like, making sure your seatbelt's done all the time and making sure like looking both ways before you turn? And are you like worried about, because that's what they say, right? Like if you leave God, right, you're going to be miserable. You better look 3 or 4 times before you turn left, or.
It's funny because yeah, I do remember that. I think I've had more of that fear when I did miss like one service when I was like first like in.
Uh,
Um, but then when I left, I think I was so angry and I was so hurt that I
right.
was just like, if this is it, this is it,
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of care to like I guess like to really like ponder on the thought. It was more so um I'm a single mom of 2 kids. I just lost the support that I thought I had outside of my family. Um and now I just need to survive, Like I need to make it. I mean, I'm trying to make ends meet for me and my kids. Um because I mean, when I left, I was living in a townhome that belonged to my um my group leader.
That's right. I
You know?
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I like left, I remember I didn't give anyone my address. The only person that knew where I lived from that church was my friend, my childhood friend. And outside of that, I didn't tell anyone. And it was mainly because I didn't want any of them to visit me. I really didn't want them to come to my house to try and convince me to go back because I knew at that time I was very vulnerable that I probably would have. But I knew I didn't want to go back because
Right.
everything that I was told about love, about forgiveness, about us being a family, like it was all a lie. And
Yeah.
that's why I went, because the love that I thought I was feeling there that I thought was genuine, like really wasn't, Like obviously with some of the people, yeah, 100%. I still love a lot of the members there, but it's just like so crazy that you can love someone while you're there, but the second they leave, it's like that's it, you
Yeah.
know? It's like you never existed. And it's I don't know. Like I think that's
Because
what hurt me the most. And that's why I was just kind of like, eh. Obviously this wasn't what I thought it was. So everything they told me must have been a lie.
it's a fair point. Actually, me and Diana were just talking about that. When it comes to this place, right? They would always say, if it's 1% false, what is it? right? Even though it's 99% true, but 1% false, what is it? It's false, right? Or if you have a jug of water and you put a drop of poison in it, it's just one drop, right? But what does it make it? Oh, it's all poison now. No one can drink it now. I remember when I started finding out that everything was false and I was lied to, I was extremely depressed. I was extremely distraught. I hardly ate and slept for a week because I was just like, my whole world just came crumbling down, right? And I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to turn to, who to talk to, because you can't talk to anybody in there, right? Because they're gonna snitch on you, right? You're gonna have the gangrene. Oh, don't talk to him. He's starting to do out. He's starting to use logic and common sense. We can't have that, So it's just look at the look at what it produces. All right, by their fruit you will know them.
One thing I noticed from watching different interviews, most of the members that have left, it's because somehow they got hurt. It
Yeah,
might not even be because you realized it was truth or not, or whether it was a cult or not, but you stopped going because you were just hurt. This, like, Cassandra mentioned, this love that you thought you had at church, it was actually non-existent. And it's not until they leave that they begin to actually research the church, and then that's when they find out. Because I guess you could say you could repair your heart and then possibly go back to the church, because if it's truth,
yeah,
it's truth, you're going to go back. That's where
right.
salvation is. So I'm willing to go back even though I'm still healing my heart. But that's when they begin to research, and then they realize, wait, my I was hurt, not just because somebody decided to hurt my feelings, but that's because God's love really isn't there at all, because it's not the truth. And
Yeah,
then that's why you never hear a member who found out that it's actually a cult that went back.
yeah.
You
Um, and if so, if you do know of anybody, I would really like to talk to that person and
yeah,
see
yeah.
what's going on up there. Like, are you all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't, like I mentioned, if your feelings got hurt, if your heart got hurt, emotionally you were hurt, you're probably willing to go back because salvation is there. But once you find out it's a cult, I have not heard of anyone that has gone back.
No. Um, and I don't think anyone will if they ever
No,
realize it's a cult.
no.
Um, because as soon as I did, I couldn't. I gave them multiple chances, and I'm not going to go into my story here because you can see it on my channel, me and Kayleen's story. But I also want to address. This is actually a good point to address here too. We've gotten a lot of flack for our videos at this point for exposing people, exposing things, right? Like personal things, I guess, for lack of a better word. But here's the reason why we talk about these things, because the church is extremely quick to point out these kind of things in other denominations. And they use that to say, oh, see, look what's going on in that church. It's false. Like, how could God be there? Right? So they use that standard to judge other denominations, other churches, because of course, yes, we're all sinners. We all make problems. We all do dumb things. And that's just how it is. Read the New Testament. You'll see plenty of dumb things that the early church did
Yeah,
that Paul was ripping his hair out over. So, it does exist, right? But their whole thing is like, oh, we're the truth. Father, Mother are with us. We're holy. We're godly. We're this. They have this holier than thou righteous standard. And they're so quick to point out all these other things in the other churches and their leaders and stuff, calling them false, Babylon, demonic, Satan worshiper, whatever, the whole stick. But the reason why I bring up some of these things is because you're no different. The World Mission Society Church of God is no different.
yeah,
It's no different. And by your own standard, you would be false if you actually measured if you actually used your own measuring stick against yourself, you'd have to label yourself as false. Um, but so I wanted to address that because we've been getting comments about, oh, they're exposing people. Like, we're not really exposing people. We're not using names or anything, but we're making a point because this is
yeah.
actually the standard they use to judge other denominations and whatnot.
And it's not
Um,
necessarily we're pinpointing someone, it's an experience that we went through.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like I was there, I went through it. This is my personal experience, and that person I happened to be there.
So, Kassandra,
Yeah.
I want to know, what are you doing now?
Um.
Has your
Well,
life gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Tell me unfiltered what's going on.
unfiltered. I am doing great. I no longer live in Utah. I'm actually out in Washington State, not city. Um, but it's been nice. I'm not gonna lie. It's nice to not have that worry and fear of I can't go to this, I shouldn't attend that, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't have to do that, and actually be able to spend time with my family and my kids and really enjoy the moment, you know, not have to worry about what my kids are doing, what they're hearing, who they're talking to, or who's talking to them, who's showing them things, or whatever it is. Like, I feel like we're no longer in this bubble, you know, of like of this standard that I have to be at. Like, I can actually be who I am, um, you know, to the full without feeling like I'm being judged by anybody, you know?
Right.
Um, and I mean, I love my life right now, you know? I've traveled so much since I left. Like, outside of going to like California for like
You asked
preaching.
permission from the overseer, right, before you did all that traveling, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You got all the
That's
Zion
right.
set up. They knew where you were going, where you were staying, your family, their phone, like everything, right? You did do that, right?
Oh yeah, I do remember having to do that actually. That was intense. And that's even more uncomfortable because I was like, I've never met these people in my life, and I'm just walking in, and they look at you. It's it's their thing, right? Like, who sent you here? But actually, they're expecting you to be there because someone already called them and told them that you will be there. You know.
Right.
Um. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We're living life. My girls are grown, they're growing to be beautiful and loving kids outside of that, you know. Although people, they say, you know, like, kids of this world, although they didn't really say much about the kids, right? But that our kids shouldn't be hanging out too much with like the worldly kids, because then they're going to pick up habits or things of the world, and you know. And my girls are fine. My girls are
Right,
doing
because
great.
they don't pick up bad habits in Zion. They
Right.
definitely do not do that.
Right. You know, and they I'm so proud of them. I'm proud of the young ladies that they're becoming, and you know, I found love, and I'm able to give my all to that relationship, unlike I was what I was robbed of in my past relationship, you know.
Yeah.
Um and I just I have a better relationship with my parents. I have a better relationship with my girls' families. You know, I have a great relationship with their dad, um, because I no longer judge them for everything
Yeah.
that they don't do. You know, I no longer try to pressure them into coming to this church anymore and telling them that they're gonna go to hell, you know, or that they're not gonna be saved and that the end is coming, and sound like a psycho. Um, but it's just, my life is great. I mean, I still have a really great relationships with a lot of people that from back home. You know, I was able to reconnect with friends that I lost touch with, and it's amazing. It's amazing to know that even though I left the family that I only knew at that time, you know, as far as like friends and people I can go to, um, the people of the world are forgiving for those of you that are still there. Your friends that you
Yeah.
may have, you know, turned your back on or stopped talking to, like, they'll understand when you tell them your story too, you know. that it's it wasn't something personal against them, but it was you really believed what you were being told, you know. And
Right.
you can start your relationship over with those people that you unfortunately turned away and left behind when you entered this church. But it's it's great. Life is good. Life is really good right now.
You know,
That's good.
I'm glad you mentioned that because your family whom you dissed so much because you couldn't be with them, hang out with them, do things with them, once you're out, they're good. They're just happy that you're out and want to do everything with you. But those who are still in Church of God, once you leave, they block you. They don't
Yeah.
want to they don't talk to you. They erase your number. They want nothing to do with you. So I'm like, what kind of love was that then? Because you would be very accepting regardless of what I choose. But so
Right.
your actual family is taking you in. They love the fact that you're doing well. Let's do things together. But yet this other so-called family is now, they want nothing to do with you.
It appears that worldly people's love is stronger than mother's love.
Yeah.
I
I
couldn't
mean, that's
have
kind of
said
what
it
it feels like.
for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it feels like. So, and another thing that I think is interesting, I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but when I came out, it was so hard for me to have conversation, like normal conversation, without an ulterior motive. I don't know if that relates to you guys at all. Maybe like because we preached all the time, and every time I had a conversation with somebody, it was always to get them to come to the church or come
Right.
to an event or
Yeah.
something. And so it was the hardest thing for me to just talk to people, just to talk to them,
Normal.
because I'm always like thinking like, okay, how am I gonna get this person here? How am I gonna get this person here? What if they say this about the Sabbath or Passover, Unsung Homer? That like I'm like 4 or 5 steps ahead of the conversation, trying to get them to
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was so hard for me to like start actually having conversations with people just to merely have a conversation and get to know somebody without wanting anything.
Or to not sound like you were giving a Bible study.
Right. Or trying to lead them to somewhere, or try to get something from them. That was the hardest thing for me, just to have genuine conversation.
I think the
Yeah.
hardest thing for me was to stop saying amen to everything. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like trained very well, you know, but it was the hardest thing for me. Like even at work, like they'll tell you like, "Oh, we're gonna do this." Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm in.
But
Yes, sir. Yeah.
yes, yeah, it's like that was the hardest thing for me for sure. I feel like I didn't really let go of my personal personality while I was there. I feel like the way I would talk that I'm talking to you guys now is the same way I would have greeted you
Yeah.
had we
Yeah.
been inside.
Yeah.
So having a regular conversation wasn't that hard, but it was definitely the amen part. I could not.
Right.
I had to train myself to, you know, and yeah, and to stop saying thanks to father and mother. That one
You know
was
what's
hard
funny?
too.
Sometimes I still think it, and sometimes I do say it randomly, just
Oh,
out of habit. And I'm like Christian
Really?
now. I go to another church and everything,
Yeah.
but sometimes it still just slips out just because, I mean, we're talking a decade of that's all I said all the time,
yeah,
every day. And so sometimes it just slips out, not because I mean anything by it or I'm actually like giving thanks to them or something like that, but just out of pure habit.
yeah.
Fun fact.
What?
So I have this wasn't on the docket, but I just kind of thought of this. Was was it scary when you guys first kept Christmas? I'm assuming you guys celebrate Christmas now.
Hmm.
Yes, yes and no.
Okay, I think that'd be interesting to talk about because obviously the holidays are coming. And obviously, I'm going to do videos on the holidays because I think that's a very big issue when it comes to this place. So much misinformation. It's just a headache. But anyway, I'm going to do it. So was it, and we're gonna be called sun god, Satan worshiper, etc. So just be prepared for that. But when you guys celebrated Christmas, was it like scary at first, or did you feel like you were like, oh no, Satan's gonna get me or something like that?
So for me, it was kind of weird. Because I was, because of how long, I was on my own, and um we would go and spend like Christmas at my mom's house first. Well, Christmas Eve would be with my girl's dad's family. And then Christmas Day would be at my mom's house, you know. But it
Right.
was never I was like, oh, I shouldn't do this, because I know or whatever when I first left. But I was like, okay, but if I don't have the tree in my house,
It's fine. I'm not pagan if it's not my house.
I was just like, it's not me. So then I was just like, it's okay, it's okay.
God's like, whose tree is that? Not mine.
No, right. So I was just like, well, if the tree's not in my house and I'm just going, I could just say that I was just going to visit family. In my mind, I'm like telling myself, like, this is the excuse I'm going to give to God if he comes tomorrow, or something like that. But, and then slowly I was just like, is this the truth? And then more and more, I was just like, but when we're here and we're celebrating Christmas, it doesn't feel like we're doing it for, like, how they say, it's the birthday of Jesus, that's the celebration that is being celebrated. I was just like, I'm with my family, I'm with my kids, and we're giving gifts and whatnot, but it was more of being able to spend time with my family, where I was just like, regardless if this is or this isn't against, what God gives us, because again, like I mentioned earlier, I haven't tried to go to a church. I haven't tried really, like, getting into the Bible. I do still
Right.
believe in God 100%. I just still need to study, but I told myself, regardless of whether or not it is or it isn't, I'm here for my family. I'm not here for anything else. In my heart,
Right.
that's what I'm here for. So if God really knows my heart, because that's something we were really taught, if God truly knows my heart, he knows that I'm here because I want to spend time with my family, because I want my kids to enjoy their family. And that's why I'm here.
Right.
And then that's when it kind of became okay for me.
Okay.
Um, so I'll mention in 2023, that's when we left. And it was like summertime. I just remember it was super hot outside. And then so that year when Christmas came, we didn't celebrate it. In our mind, it was still very like, no, we
Off
can't do
limits.
it. Yeah, it's off limits. Okay, I know we're out of the church, but we were still like, well, we know Christmas is bad. Christmas is still, we can't do stuff like that. But in 2024, i- a whole year and some change had passed. We said, you know what? Who cares? Who cares? Let's just do it. And the reason why we mainly decided to do is because, so growing up, I had mentioned previously that I was Jehovah's Witness. My whole family was Jehovah's Witness. They don't celebrate Christmas either.
Oh
And
yeah, that's
so,
true.
yeah, so even though my mom was already out, no longer attending their meetings, she still had the Jehovah's Witness mindset. And so holidays were not allowed in our house. Um, and so 2023, when we came out and I went and I spoke to my mom, and I was very honest with her. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna tell you, we were basically in a cult. It wasn't the truth, and I know I pushed it on you so much, but it just wasn't, And I think that helped her also to get out of that Jehovah's Witness mindset. And so
For sure.
2024, she was all for it. She's like, so we had never put up a tree in our house ever that I
How
can
was
ever
that?
remember. It was so odd. And it was my daughter and me who went to go buy it. And we were both looking at each other like, This
Like,
one is
oh,
just
we're so in
yes.
trouble.
We didn't even know what to do or how to do this. We're like, what's apparently there's different sizes, there's different decoration. It's just like a whole thing. And we were like, you know what? Let's just go all out. So we did. We got everything. And then my mom, she's like, I'll be back, goes to the store, comes back with a whole bunch of stuff. And it was absolutely great. My whole family, even my youngest brother, when he one day he comes out and he sees the tree and he's like, what's going on, guys? We have a tree. So it wasn't just us that felt a little bit off. It's like my whole family actually. But it was so great. We had so much fun. And you know what? If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, whatever. We had a great time.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And like I said, I'll do a Christmas. So we actually celebrated Christmas last year too.
Hmm.
We got our little, obviously the three little ones, because my son's still pretty young, so we didn't get him an animal, but we got my two girls kittens. So we
Oh,
wrapped up. We got empty boxes, and obviously, like a few minutes before the kids woke up, we put them in the box, and we're like trying to keep them quiet, and we didn't like wrap it because we didn't want them to like you know die or something. So
No,
we just like kind of
that's
we kind of just opened it a little bit, but they're just like
oh,
we are trying to put it in the bathroom. So anyway, they go out and because we didn't sleep that whole night because we're like finishing wrapping and we're putting presents under the tree and stuff, and so they're all asleep, and it was just so fun, like just watching them wake up and um, they run in and they open all their presents and they're just going through it and they're so happy. Like I've never seen them that happy
yeah.
because think about it, we just left a colt, right? So we're still trying to figure things out. But um, we had a tree. We decorated the tree, and of course, we made it all about Jesus, right? The star represents the this and that. Ornaments represent blessing or that kind of thing. So we made it about Jesus, um, and then so at the very end, we bring in the boxes with the kittens, and they hear the meow meow, and they're like, "Are you
oh,
serious?" Like they open it and they just see the little kittens pop their head out, and they're just like. And Ellie's like, "Oh my gosh, it's a kitten!" And then Ivy's like, "Do I have one?" And then opens up her box, and there's another one, and they're just losing their mind. It was the best. It was the absolute best.
that's
And
awesome.
I know WMSCOG members are like probably disgusted and horrified
Having
by
a
these
heart attack.
revelations, probably having a heart attack. I'll make a video on it. Relax. Christmas is totally fine, and I will prove it. Relax. Coming soon.
You,
Um,
I don't ever remember my daughter being so excited about keeping the Passover.
yeah,
There you go.
Yeah, I definitely do not. And they try to make it the same, and it's like you can't.
Yeah,
But
no.
anyway,
Doesn't compare.
um,
I think it's
yeah, it
funny that you
doesn't.
say that though, that they're like they'll probably be losing their minds because I remember I was told as long as it's not given on that same day and it's not wrapped, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
Which
my
what the difference does it make? Like really?
right. Oh my gosh, thank you. Because now that I'm out and I'm just like, so it doesn't matter. Like
No.
basically what you're saying is it doesn't matter because it's still a Christmas gift. Like they bought it
Correct.
for, as a Christmas gift. They're
Correct.
receiving it. It's just not wrapped. I remember my girl's dad's mom always had a hard time because she loves Christmas,
Oh
and
yeah.
she has a lot of grandkids. So
Same with
everyone
mine.
has their
Same.
piles of like gifts at her house. And the girls never had one because she just had their stuff in bags because she couldn't wrap
Oh,
it, So she would always give it to me the 26th, you know. She'd be like, I got their, can I bring you? And it would be a lot. Like when I tell you a lot, like she would bring me like almost like a duffel bag for each one, just full of things for them, like,
That's
and
cool.
when they finally did get to like actually have, because she would always ask me like, can I wrap them this time since you're not going anymore? And I was like, yeah, you can. She was so excited. She was so excited, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm just like, how does it make sense that they can receive it if it's not wrapped in, if it's not on that day, but it's
It's
like
not it's
we
not
can't.
meant to make sense. It's not meant to make sense. It's meant for
Correct.
control. That's
Correct.
all it's meant for. And I remember we would get like we'd preach and we'd get like Santa cookies or snowman cookies or whatever, and like, oh, I
Or
can't eat that. Food sacrifice to idols.
correct. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm gonna do videos on that too because it's just the most insane teachings that you could ever imagine, and it's not biblical how they teach that kind of stuff. And I'll have all the receipts, so you WMSCOG members just
Hang tight.
relax. Don't have a heart attack. Relax. I'll explain everything. It will be okay. I promise. But I just want to bring that up because like so many years our parents couldn't enjoy those kind of moments with the kids. Like we had to make sure all of the presents were done on New Year's. We did New Year's instead, and so like
Yes,
New Year's Eve was like our Christmas Eve, right?
we
And
did
then we'd
too.
wrap all their presents in New Year's approved material, and then we basically make a mock Christmas if it was as
Mm-hmm.
it were without a tree or something, because that's what we are allowed to do. Um, and so I just bring that up because that is what people have to look forward to after they leave is you can actually celebrate the holidays. So now personally, I don't celebrate Halloween. I'll make a video about that too. But again, it's not about me. It's not about what I say.
Mhm.
It's, these kind of things. It's more about your conscience and it's more about your intent, right? It's about your own personal conscience, your own personal conviction, right? Which the WMSCOG totally just, right? But anyway, don't want to get too much into it, but I just want members to know that that is something to look forward to. Like Christmas is totally fine, and it's totally acceptable, and it's awesome. Um, so I just wanted to throw that out there. I know it wasn't on the docket, but I thought it necessary. Um, and then Diana, I wanted to ask you a question. Um, you were talking about or mentioning before about your daughter not being able to date. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually two circumstances, inside and outside of Zion. So my daughter was old enough, and she spoke to me and said that she, wanted to date basically.
Okay.
And of course, in Zion, we're always taught that it should be inside of Zion. So my daughter spoke to me, and this little brother spoke to his parents. The parents spoke to each other, and we said, why not? He's a good kid. My daughter's a good kid. We said, fine. At that moment, I'll be honest, I don't remember why we didn't specifically say anything to our overseer, but the way they found out was one other little sister. She went and spoke to her mom, and the mom, as a group leader, went and spoke to the overseer's wife, sorry. So the overseer's wife came and spoke to me, spoke to my daughter, and said, okay, well, they're already dating, so we'll let it be, but make sure to keep everything kind of on the down low. Like, don't be letting members know that they're basically dating. So in Zion, they were basically not allowed to even look at each other. I don't know how or why or what happened, but the actual overseer, um, he found out not from his wife and basically came and spoke to me and said that mother said that she was not allowed to date inside Zion. And so he made them basically separate. And they had already been together for like a year. And yeah, so he basically said, nope, that's not allowed. It's not going to happen. Mother said no. And so when he told me this, he said, be careful with the words you use when telling your daughter why she's not allowed to date the little brother. And so basically, I was not allowed to tell my daughter that mother said that they were not allowed to date. Correct. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And so I had to explain to my daughter, like, I have to basically make up something as to why she was not allowed to date. Just date.
I would have looked
So
at you crazy had I been your daughter after a year.
she really did. Yeah. She's like, what do you mean? Like the overseer's wife knows. She knew this whole time that they were dating. And now all of a sudden, the actual overseer finds out. And then now all of a sudden, it's not allowed. And all of a sudden, it came from mother. And
So he
so,
can use mother said. He can use the
mm-hmm,
phrase mother said, but he
mm-hmm,
forbids you from
but
using
I
the
was not
phrase
allowed
mother
to.
said.
No,
So he puts the insanity. So it's like, okay, I'm going to explain something crazy to you, but now you have to explain that insanity to somebody else, but you can't use the phrases that I use. So good
correct.
luck. Like,
Correct. And I'll tell
wow.
you why that's why it became a problem. So time passes. My daughter speaks to me again and she's like, "Well, I'm not allowed to date inside of Zion. Am I allowed to date outside of Zion?" And I said, "You know what? As long as you kind of understand like maybe he's a good kid, we get to know him, then sure, I'll allow it." And so when we spoke to like the overseer, well actually the overseer's wife wanted to have a meeting with the moms and basically told us no, there should be no dating ever inside or outside. They're either too young or you never know what kind of boy it might be. And I thought, well, that's my daughter. Like if I'm letting her, then I don't see what the problem is. And I would rather my daughter tell me what's happening versus my daughter want to do something without telling
Without
me.
you knowing. Yeah. Like,
Yes, because at least I have more control over what's happening,
right.
you know. But no, so I had to again tell my daughter, explain to my daughter, no, you are not allowed to date. So she was not allowed to date inside of Zion. She was not allowed to date outside of Zion. So now, fast forward, we're in California, and this same little sister that basically ratted my daughter out is now dating the same boy that my daughter was dating. And it's allowed. They were allowed. And I'm like, so what happened to mother said no? So some are allowed and some are not allowed, or do you need because this little sister, her mom's was a group leader. And so what? You have to be a group leader so that they're allowed, or do you need special privileges to be allowed to do certain things in Zion or pay more tithe? I don't know. What is it? What is it that you
I know
have
what it
to
is.
do?
Father, mother said so.
Oh, makes
Just
sense.
listen. Just listen. Father, mother said
Yes.
so.
Mm-hmm.
You got that down
Father,
so
mother.
well because I know exactly who you're impersonating, and it's like, damn, you've seen it so much.
Sister, father, mother already think for you. You don't have to
Oh,
think.
that
Don't
face.
think.
And the
Just
blinking of the
accept. Just
eyes.
accept. Okay. Sorry. Moving on. I have to. WCOG members, you know it's funny. Come on. You know it's
Yes,
funny.
it is. They're
You know
laughing.
exactly
They're
who I'm talking
smiling.
about.
Yeah.
I know you feel like you can't laugh, but you can laugh. Come on. If you can't laugh, you'll cry. So I prefer you laugh. Um, okay. So I wanted to move in. We have about 35 minutes left. I wanted to move into kind of going through some doctrine because I know Kassandra, you didn't really get the opportunity to go through some of the doctrine. So I want to kind of talk about some of these, especially the stuff that's probably being spread around right now, just to kind of get ahead of the curve. Did you guys have anything else you want to talk about before I start going into the boring doctrine stuff, as I have been told?
Oh, I'm logging off.
What was that?
Just kid. I'm logging off.
All right. So I want to go into Armstrongism, and this might actually be interesting for you, Cassandra, if you've never heard about Armstrong.
Mm,
So Armstrong, he was about in the 1930s is when he started his church. It was first called Radio Church of God, then it was called Worldwide Church of God. And what he did is he basically broke away from the Church of God Seventh Day, which is before the SDA Church was ever established, which is another sect that broke off from the Millerite movement. So Armstrong established the Radio Church of God. Then it was a few years later changed to the Worldwide Church of God. And so what he did is he actually installed the Sabbath day. He actually installed the Passover, and he actually installed the seven feasts in 3 times. And how they keep the Passover is literally identical to how the World Mission Society Church of God does it. First month, 14th day at twilight, bread and wine with the feet washing beforehand. So it's pretty much on par with the same thing. And Armstrong also in his sermons, he taught that the Passover was essential for eternal life, and for forgiveness of sins, for that matter. And so the World Mission Society Church of God takes this and like, well, he didn't keep it fully because he doesn't know who father and mother are. The problem with that rebuttal is, according to their the WMSCOG theology, is the Passover reveals the true God and destroys all of their fake gods, right? Like in Exodus 12, the Passover destroys the false gods. So then if that's the case, if Armstrong kept Passover, shouldn't he know who true God is? Or are you going to say now Passover actually doesn't show you who true God is? Because if you say, oh, well, Passover then I guess doesn't show you who true God is, then why on earth are you keeping the Passover? And how do you know then that father and mother are God? Because didn't they restore the Passover? So the reason this is significant is because, again, Armstrong was years before Ansang Hong. We're talking like 1930s. He was already restored, quote unquote, the Passover, which, according to WMSCOG theology, again, only who? The root of David, only the last Adam, only King David, only Melchizedek, all these other, only. But then why is Armstrong keeping it decades before Ansang Hong ever makes an appearance?
Correct.
Right. So that's something that you as a WMSCOG member should look into. And I'll come back to Armstrongism in a minute, but that's just one thing I want to talk about, because they smear Armstrong and they try to make up these dumb rebuttals where it's like, he kept Passover first, just admit it. Like,
That's so crazy, because
it's a fact.
The only one I remember was about the Jehovah's Witnesses doing the Passover on the first month, 14th day, but they didn't do it right because they didn't do the feet washing, and they don't actually eat it, they just pass it around.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because according to the Church of God Jesus Witnesses, which is the original church before, so there's actually three churches. There's the Church of God Jesus Witnesses, NCPCOG, and WMSCOG. So the Church of God Jesus Witnesses is the original one. And what's funny, because when Ansang Hong allegedly broke off and they started their own church, etc., they didn't know how to keep the feast. So they actually had to ask the Jehovah's Witnesses how to keep the feast when they kept the first one. And they actually, and so you have God in the flesh who doesn't know how to keep the feast, so he has to ask a cult how to keep the Passover, like what day to calculate the days. So riddle me that. I mean, root of David, right?
Yeah. Anyway. Interesting.
And another thing is too, we've talked a little bit about this, and I've talked about it numerous times on this channel, but I want to kind of go over another rebuttal. Is the Moonies, Reverend Moon, in 1951 wrote a book called The Divine Principle. In that book, he talks about coming on the clouds equal flesh, right? Uses the same verses, same transition, same everything. He talks about the fig tree, talks about the East being Korea. He talks about a father and a mother figure, like God the Father, God the Mother. And like the root of David, only the root of David can restore the lost truth in the last days for God's people. So he wrote this book in 1951, which is decades before Ansang Hong ever wrote any of his books, let alone, the Green Book, which is the one everyone knows so well. And so the WMSCOG rebuttal to this is, well, okay, yeah, so false Christs naturally can come and bring truth, right? But they're still false. The problem is, how can a false Christ bring truth? If false Christ bring truth, how is he false? Like, it makes no difference. It makes no sense. It actually makes tons of difference. It makes no sense. And so one of the things that they'll show you, and I'm going to read this book, it's called The Last Plagues and the Seal of God. I'm going to read the preface, so this might be triggering, but I think it's beneficial, and I'll explain why. Mm-hmm. So if you look at page 5, and it's a couple paragraphs down, it says, the 7 last plagues will come in the near future. People have been deceived by false prophets who still say that Jesus' second coming is close at hand. However, as you know, where there is truth, falsehood always appears and works in advance. We should not forget the truth, and we should not forget that the truth is hidden where there is falsehood, right? So here's the thing. They'll paint this and they'll say, oh, see, Ansang Hong said that there's going to be false Christs who come and bring a little bit of truth. That's actually not what he's saying. He's saying where there is truth, falsehood always appears and works in advance. He's simply saying the truth is hidden where there is falsehood, right? Because there's Babylon and they're all false. And among all these Babylon churches, there's our church, the World Mission Society Church of God, right? Or whatever church he was at, or Church of God Jesus Witnesses at that time, I guess, or whatever. But the point is, he's saying among all the churches, there's this little speck of light, and that's us, right? There's light, there's truth hidden in the falsehood.
Yeah.
But they'll spin it and say, oh, see, this means second coming, or this means false Christ come, and then they bring truth and they reveal truth, but they're still false. That's not what he's saying at all. He doesn't mention anything about that. And again, what is the point? If a false Christ can bring truth, but then a true Christ, right? They'll say, well, An Sang Hong is God. He's the true Christ, but yet he has failed prophecies.
Correct.
Right? But yet he changes doctrine, right? They changed his doctrine. They removed 3 chapters from the Green Book, right? Which is, if he's the root of David, that's a whole nother problem, right? And they'll say, well, he was to reveal the hidden truth. The truth was everywhere. It was already existing. He was just revealing the hidden truth, the hidden truth. That's not what it says in the Green Book. It says the truth was completely destroyed and it had to be restored.
That's correct.
Right? But they act like truth is just floating out there, and he's just like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And like we're like in putting it together or something like that. So they're chameleons, right? They keep changing their doctrine. And the point I'm bringing up with Reverend Moon and all these other places that have taught these things before, like coming from the East, like the angel from the East, right? They know it's Korea. This was taught by Reverend Moon decades before An Sang Hong. And they'll say something like, well, even though, like, yes, false Christ naturally come and bring truth. How is that natural? How can a false Christ bring truth? And how can a true Christ have false prophecies and failed prophecies? That means, like, enough so that they had to take away books. You can't have his original writings. You can't have the original 3 chapters that were in the Green Book. It's like, guys, what is your criteria for a true Christ? Because it matches your criteria for a false Christ. Oh, false Christ can have truth, but a true Christ can also be false, have falseness or whatever. Like, you have to, like, just think. Come on, guys. Like, just think a little bit here. So that preface is completely taken out of context. He is not mentioning Second Coming Christ or anything. He's not mentioning false Christ, rather. He's simply saying, among all the churches, there's this little church, and it's us, and we're the truth. That's all he's saying. But of course, they take everything out of context. I know, weird, right? It's so unlike them. Also, another thing I want to talk about is the Passover. So when you read about the Passover in the New Testament, it's interesting because if you read the Synoptic Gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it shows that the Passover, right? They eat the Passover, the night unleavened bread, right, in which the Passover lamb must be sacrificed. So it shows them eating the Passover, right? Jesus gives the bread and wine, and then Jesus is crucified the next day, right? Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
However, when you read the book of John, which is not the Synoptic Gospels, it's separate. When you read the book of John, you read John chapter 18 and John chapter 19. John says the Passover is actually the day Jesus is crucified, not the day before. So you have the Synoptic Gospels who say Jesus ate the Passover and then the next day crucified. John, however, says that Jesus was actually crucified on Passover. And then if you read John 13, he references the feet washing with the meal and everything. But the interesting thing is John never mentions the Passover being on that day. You read John 13, we always read it for Passover, right? For the feet washing. But the thing is John never called that meal the Passover. He never mentioned it being the Passover meal, ever. In fact, in the whole book of John, he never mentions bread and wine actually at all. And so my question for the WMSCOG members, you have Matthew, Mark, and Luke that say Jesus kept the Passover and then was crucified the day after. But then you have John that says he kept the meal, but was actually crucified the next day on Passover, if you read John chapter 8 and 19. Or sorry, John chapter 18 and 19. So how do you resolve that? Right? How do you resolve it? Because remember, if there's two dates for Passover, which there's the there's the Sadducean calendar, which is John's calendar, and then you have the Pharisee calendar, which is Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So there's two calendars. So which one do you choose? The Pharisee calendar that actually puts Jesus eating the bread and wine on first month 13th day, or the Sadducean calendar where Jesus is crucified first month 14th day. So, I mean, make of that what you will, but you have to admit there's two different dates for Passovers. That's what John says, and that's what Matthew, Mark, and Luke say, and that's what history says. So which Passover is correct? Riddle me that. So another thing that I was asked to bring up is about the Sabbath. Sorry, I'm just kind of machine gunning these out, but
That's okay.
when the Sabbath was given, right? We always threaten people with Exodus chapter 20, right? Leviticus 23. You must keep the Sabbath as a sign between you and God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, when that command was made, there was no synagogue. There was no church. But they'll use that to say you must go to church on Saturday. But the thing is there was no synagogue to go to, and there was no church to go to. So the command does not mean to go to church. The command doesn't even mean to go to the synagogue. In fact, the command simply means rest. Spend time with your family. There is not a single shred of the Torah that tells you to go to church or to go to a synagogue on Saturday, especially in the Pentateuch or the Old Testament. It just says rest. Sabbath literally means, like Shabbat, literally means rest or to cease. It has no meaning of going to a church or going to a synagogue. In fact, a couple hundred years before Jesus was born, the synagogues were built. Okay, and people started going to the synagogues on the Sabbath to basically fellowship, to worship, to sing, right, to praise God. Here's the thing, though. It was never commanded in the Torah. It's never commanded in the Old Testament. So actually going to the synagogue on the Sabbath has the same criteria as a man-made teaching, because it's never commanded by Scripture to actually go to the synagogue and worship and sing songs and all that kind of stuff. It just simply meant to rest. So that's something you have to consider, WMSCOG member. The synagogue and the church didn't exist in Exodus or Leviticus when the commands of keeping the Sabbath were given. It simply means to rest. And history suggests that going to the synagogue on the Sabbath was actually a man-made custom. It was a man-made tradition, as you would call it. So riddle me that, because they make such a big deal about it, but yet it's actually a man-made teaching to go to the synagogue on the Sabbath. It's not commanded by the Torah. Now, that kind of leads me into my second point, right? Acts chapter 17, verse 2, they always say Paul went to the synagogue on the Sabbath, right? It was his custom to go into the synagogue. Yeah, it was his custom to go into the synagogue on the Sabbath. However, the custom is applied to him going to the synagogue, if you actually read it carefully. His custom was to go into the synagogue. And then it says, on 3 Sabbaths, he reasoned with them from the Scriptures. So the custom actually applies to preaching, especially in the Greek text. But the point is, yes, he did go into the synagogue, and he did go on the Sabbath, right? But did he go to keep worship? Because we have to ask ourselves this question, okay? First question is, the Jews were already in the synagogue worshiping on the Sabbath, right?
Yeah.
So if this Sabbath was commanded by Jesus, right? Because they say this is a new covenant Sabbath Paul's keeping, right? You go to church on Saturday, right? That's what they're saying, right? This is the new covenant Sabbath established by Jesus, right? But here's the thing: if the Jews didn't believe in Jesus, I don't know why I keep going like this, but if the Jews didn't believe in Jesus and they crucified him, why is it they're keeping the new covenant Sabbath already? Mm-hmm. And Paul's going to the synagogue to preach to them about Jesus, right? That's what the Scriptures say. He's going to reason with them and prove that Jesus is the Messiah. But they're already keeping worship in the synagogue, but they don't believe in Jesus?
Correct.
How does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because their whole thing, this is like, oh, this proves Saturday worship, right? Which, again, you want to go to church Saturday or Sunday. I've been very clear about that. It doesn't matter as long as you do it for Jesus. But anyway, but here's another point. They'll say because Paul's feet were in the synagogue on the Sabbath, that means he also kept the Sabbath, right? Even though that's not what the text says. The text says he was simply preaching to the Jews in the synagogue on the Sabbath because, think about it, right? You wanted to preach a message to a bunch of people, and you knew that they were going to gather at this place at this time on this day. What would you do?
That's
You
where
would
you
do
go.
the exact same thing, right? And so they'll say, well, Paul definitely kept the Sabbath and he's enforcing the Sabbath here. Okay, fair enough. But here's where it gets interesting, right? Because you remember how they would always say, oh, if you're a Christian, you need to follow the example of Jesus, right? You need to do everything Jesus did, right? Funny thing, in John chapter 10, Jesus kept Hanukkah. You read John chapter 10, it says Jesus was walking among the temple courts in the Feast of Dedication. In Hebrew, that's Hanukkah. So he's walking in the temple courts, and the Jews come up to him like, how long are you going to keep us in suspense? And then he teaches them, right? So Jesus is keeping the feast of Dedication, the Feast of Hanukkah, right? And you can't say he's not keeping it because his feet are in the temple courts on the Feast of Dedication. Why else would he be there? Right? Why else would he be in the temple courts on the Feast of Dedication in Hanukkah? So it's the same criteria. If he's not keeping Hanukkah, Paul's not keeping the Sabbath because the criteria is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So then, WMSCOG members, why don't you keep Hanukkah? Oh, don't you have to keep everything Jesus did in order to be a good Christian? Also, what's Hanukkah? It's a man-made feast in the wintertime. It's not in the Torah. It's not in the law. And they'll say, well, it's not a feast. He wouldn't keep it. That's not the argument. The argument is, shouldn't we do everything Jesus did in order to be a Christian? But then why doesn't the WMSCOG keep the Feast of Dedication or Hanukkah? Seems a little hypocritical if you think about it. So these are just some things that I want WMSCOG members just to think about just a little bit. Like, I don't care if you keep Sabbath. Like, Sabbath is awesome. Passover is awesome. But what about who are you worshiping, though? That's the most important thing to figure out is who are you worshiping? Are you worshiping a made-up deity that is just wanting to control you, just wanting to take your money, take your time? Or are you like, that is the most important thing we should focus on. Like, but that's what cults do, right? They take these little tiny things that really don't matter, blow them up, and you just don't even think about, the main thing was like, who am I worshiping? Like, who is this God? Who is this person that I am devoting my life to? Right? And they'll say like, oh, well, because obviously mother's human, right? And I say mother because that's what they know her as. But they'll say, oh, well, she's hiding her glory, right? Like, she doesn't know people are infiltrating, like, because Shincheonji infiltrates the WMSCOG. And if you don't know what Shincheonji is, they're like another Korean cult, but they're infiltrating WMSCOG. And I'm like, how can they infiltrate if God is in the flesh, right? And they'll be like, oh, well, mother's hiding her glory, right? She's not, she's hiding her glory because, she's in the flesh, made like us in every way. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't match scripture because remember, Jesus picked Judas. That is correct. But he called out Judas all the time. Like, one of you is a devil. 3 years before he ever did anything, right? Zacchaeus climbed up the tree. He didn't have a name tag. He's not like, Jesus, look, here's my name. Here it is. And Jesus is like, Zacchaeus, I need to come to your house. No, he knew exactly who it was.
They already knew, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? He called people by their names. And the Samaritan woman, right, by the well, oh, come meet this prophet. He's told me everything he knows about me. But yeah, you have to go to mother. When you go to mother, you need a name tag. Like, it's not the same. Like, Jesus, yes, did he hide his humanity? For sure. Of course he did. But you could still very clearly tell that he was not just a human. He called out Judas all the time and even said, like, what you're about to do quickly. Like, I know what you're doing. That is not the same when you match it up to An Sang Hong or mother. So just really I want to get to somebody. I want to speak to somebody. Just think about these things. Just ponder them for a minute. And just really make the decision, is this what you want to follow? Is this what you really want to devote your life to? Just think about it for a second. Just think about these things for a second. Okay, that was my tangent. That's all I was asked to talk about. We went over everything, so people can't get mad at me. Um, so we have about 10 more minutes. Does anyone else want to talk about something or have something else they want to bring up before we start wrapping this up?
The only thing I'll say is, there's the members who go visit mother and they say, oh, she knows everything about you, yet you still need your saint card. Like you mentioned, you still need a name tag. And she never says anything to the members other than, I love you so much. You're doing so great. And even though some of these members are not doing great, maybe their life is in shambles, but she's always like, "You're doing so great. Just keep preaching." And it's the only thing she ever says to members. And I'm like, so she really doesn't know you. She just has like a basic phrase she says to all members that,
Right.
that go. And that's that. And then the members are over here like, she knows me.
Yeah. And I think too they prop it up so much to where it's like, you know, they every time somebody goes, they shed fragrances of them crying, and they really build it up with like all these videos and like mother
Yeah.
sacrifice and all this kind of stuff. So when you
Yeah.
go there, you're expecting so much, and the love bomb, it's just like senses overload, and you're just like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
But what's funny is there was I can't remember the deacon's name, but he's an ex-deacon, obviously. He was on the Pit podcast, and he went and met Mother. And at this time, he wasn't really preaching or anything. He was like kind of done. And Mother was like, "Oh, you're such a good preacher. Like you're really awesome at preaching." And he's like, "I don't preach.
I've been preaching a long
I hate
time.
preaching."
Yeah.
Like it's just those kind of things are just so common, so
Mm-hmm.
common. Like when members who have met Mother, they're just like, it was cool. Like I went to Korea, like the food was great, the people were
Yeah.
friendly, like it was awesome experience. But as far as, and I'm sure there's other people that are like, they'll probably shoot me down and be like, no, it was the greatest thing ever. Okay, cool, great, that's awesome. God bless, right? Calm down. But you just have to weigh out the facts, guys.
Yeah.
Facts don't care about your feelings, right? Facts outweigh feelings. Um, and so it's just really just please think about these things. Just make sure that you are sure about this organization, about going to this church. Give them your tithe, your time, your kids' time with your kids, with your family. Because again, you can't get that back.
Um, I watched Alfonso's interview as well. And one thing that like really stuck with me from what he was saying was like, they only reach out to you or they only choose you when you have something to offer, right?
Right.
Um, I remember being told actually because there was a less fortunate sister at the time that she she had come from uh, like a Mormon background in which I mean since we were all in Utah, we all kind of know like they do a lot of
Yeah.
help with like families. They help pay
Oh,
like rent,
100%.
food, all of that stuff. So she came from that background, and she was going through some things, and I remember she asked like if we had like some kind of like help like financially, and I remember she was told no, like we don't do that stuff. And then I was like, wait, then why do we always like what are the tithes and the offerings for, right? If they're not for that. So then I was told by my group leader at the time that we're not supposed to help brothers and sisters financially in any way because it it we become like it can start a quarrel between you, or that it has, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was basically like saying like brothers and sisters have to figure it out on their own, and they basically like get themselves out of whatever financial issues they're having on their own, or whatever it is. But physical work, 100% go help them, like if they need to move, if they need to do this, like yeah, go help. But as far as like finances, like it's a big no. And it was just always like something that I was like, okay, I get it, like everyone like it's a way for people to be independent on their own or whatever it is. But then I was like, okay, so the money's getting used for the churches. Well, then I talked to another member who actually left. She was running a church at the time, and I don't want to mention her name in case she doesn't want me to, but she told me that she was excited because they were finally getting a church, and so she was like, finally, the financial burden's no longer going to be on her and her husband. Well, then she was told you need to ask the members how much they are comfortable contributing every month so that they can know what kind of office to look for because the members are going to be paying for it. So then she was like, well, then why are we tithing and offering? Like, what is the point of the tithes and the offerings? Where is this money going? And then I was just like, okay, like we're literally just giving our money away to like an organization that one isn't helping with the the church or whatever. Like where's this money going? Like and then on top of that, like we can't even help each other, but we're supposed to be family. Like if
Right.
my sister ever needed help with something, like if she was in a like of course I'm not going to support, I get it. Like in the real world you can't support someone else if you're barely being able to support yourself, but um I mean, I feel like families will do something together, do a cookout or sell plates or whatever to help this person raise money together.
Right.
And
A
we did all
GoFundMe
sorts
or
of,
something like that.
yeah, and we would do volunteer services a lot of the time. Like, why not try and, you know, do that to help each other? But it's like, and then it all clicked for me. Like, if you don't have the funds to tithe and offer to do the tithes and the offerings, well, then you're not someone they want there,
Right.
you know? So it
Yeah.
almost, for me at least, the way I saw it, in my opinion, I saw it as if they leave on their own, it's better, you know? At
Yeah.
least for those members that weren't giving tithe and offering anymore. And I also feel like that's exactly why when I left, that was part of the reason why I think when I left, like no one tried to reach out or try to like really like tried hard to bring me back. And on top of that, probably so that I didn't say my story as to why I left to cover up for someone else, but
Right.
all in all, it just seems like if you're not contributing financially there, you're not an asset.
Yeah.
Adam, I will say that I think that's going to be a really good topic to maybe like another time. Where do these tithes and offerings go, what they're
Yeah.
used for, and all the contributions that are constantly being given for other reasons. So not just your tithe and offering, but like constructions, when members go visit mother, the volunteer services that we do, like where does all that money come from?
So what I hear you saying is we're doing a Diana part 3.
Part 25.
Maybe Cassandra can help me host that one.
Right? Only
We'll
because
swap roles.
I think it's a really good topic because I got to see the back end of it. Like I got to see and actually have to ask members, can you contribute for this? Can you contribute for that? But also give your tithe and offering, and then do a study again for the members who are no longer tithing and why they
Scare the
should be
crap out of them.
tithing. Pretty much.
Or I'm sorry, scare the dollars out of them.
That's correct. And then, aside from your tithe and offering, please give another, 100 for the construction, for the, volunteers, or for the food, the food donation of every week. So it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, I think we can definitely talk about it. I think we should. Um, so that is all the time we have for this episode. Anyone else want to share anything real quick before we wrap up?
Well,
Nope. Clear as mud.
I'll see you guys for part 3.
Part 3. Diana, part 3. You heard it here first, folks. Okay. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy. You have kids. I really appreciate it. I think this is going to help a lot of members, and I'm just very grateful that you are willing and you are helping a lot of people. Just know that. Again, this is Finding the Alternative with Diana and Kassandra. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless. See you on the next one. Dana part 3.
Bye, guys.